are talking about the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie,
Mm-hmm.
Uga Chaka. Yeah, it is. It's the fun one, the fun part of Marvel. I mean, it's all fun, but I
Yeah.
think the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, they kind of stand in their own, like
Mm-hmm.
on their own, inside the universe, but they are certainly, I think, a step above. But yes, it's the third installment of the trilogy of Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It's written and
Mm-hmm.
directed by James Gunn, and it stars Chris Pratt, Bradley Cooper, Zoe Saldana, Karen Gillan. Um, Man, I can't pronounce any of these names. I'm sorry.
Palm
Thank
Clementine,
you.
I think. Dave Batista, Vin Diesel, Sean Gunn, Maria Bakalova, Dylan Poulter, and Chukwudi Iwushi. I think that's how you say that. Apologies if I got it wrong. But
Thank you for doing that. Yes,
yeah,
I was going to butcher some of those, so I appreciate you
I probably did too. It's
helping
fine.
up with the pronunciation. But yes, the film itself, this third one, focuses on the Guardians team after the events of Avengers Endgame and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. We start off on nowhere, and Quill is mourning the loss of Gamora, and
Mm-hmm.
the team eventually has to face off against this villain called the High Evolutionary. And while the two past movies were certainly more Peter Quill focused. He was the protagonist, and I feel like a lot of the story centered around him,
Mm-hmm.
especially the second one. I think that this movie obviously did not take that direction. This one is more focused on Rocket as the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just a fun old time. But what are your initial thoughts, Dylan?
Yeah, I think this movie is pretty extraordinary and it ranks among both the top films of the MCU and maybe even of the genre as a whole. I feel um I mean, a big thing to note early on is Gamora, original Gamora, was killed off in Avengers Infinity War. That apparently was not part of James Gunn's original plan for these movies.
Oh,
So he
mhm.
had to make it work, and I think he did in a way that exceeded my expectations, at least.
Yeah.
And so I love this movie. I think it's great. And James Gunn has said that Rocket was sort of the secret protagonist of the Guardians trilogy, and that really comes to fruition here. But with the Gamora stuff, I think there were a lot of ways this could have gone wrong, and or just been unsatisfying. And I think what we got was really great.
Yes. Yeah. It was a very creative way to write her back into the story without being too on the nose. But yeah, I agree. I'm very positive on this movie. I think it ranks in the top tier of the
Mm-hmm.
MCU films. Where you go all the way back to Iron Man. It's like this one's definitely up there with like Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. I think it's pretty close to those
Mm-hmm.
ones. Um, but I think this, in terms of like the other Guardians of the Galaxy movies too, I think this is the best one.
Okay.
Um, I think they're all great and they all stand out on their own. But I think it's the best one because we have already had all that backstory
Mm-hmm.
of them, and so we already know these characters. And then so this movie just kind of like kicks off really quick, and it really doesn't slow down, and I love
That's
that
true.
about it. But yeah, this is kind of one of those uh, superhero comic book movies that can happen when you respect the vision and the skills of the director and the creator.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're so all like the studio's just super involved and doing a bunch of rough cut edits at the end.
Right.
And they're really pushing for like this one thing or this other thing. And this one, I think Gunn was able to really flex his creative muscles throughout the
Mm-hmm.
entire trilogy, and it really shows. And I think that, or I hope he takes those kinds of lessons that he learned from these three movies over to DC when he's like kind of taken over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like you were saying, it's very nice how both the camera and the effects were really given the care and time to look good. Like James Gunn seems like he has been treated by Marvel differently than a lot of the filmmakers. Like he has
Yeah.
sort of been allowed to play in his own sandbox, and there's like no spoilers, but there's a really great oneer in this movie, and beyond that, just the shots are more thoughtfully composed. Everything is very colorful and creative, and the sets and even CG environments feel like places where the like characters are actually existing instead of like Ant-Man Quantum Mania, like they're just in a gray void, sort of. That does not happen in this movie. and it's
Hmm.
really nice. I will say one fair warning. We as a society, I guess, have gotten very relaxed with what PG-13 means, to the point where like you'll bring a 4-year-old to a PG-13 movie.
Hmm.
I don't know if you should do that with this one necessarily. It's there's a pretty large amount of animal cruelty in the movie, and it doesn't show anything directly, but like it made me cry pretty severely. So I think a little kid will be kind of traumatized by that element of it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Uh, it would be difficult for a little kid to probably sit through this, especially having watched previous Marvel films,
Uh-huh.
and gotten to know Rocket and these characters as well. You know they're gonna have lows, of course. Like I think everyone kind of
Yeah.
expects that, but I think yeah, nothing can truly prepare you to see that kind of like cruelty
Hmm.
and testing on animals. It's uncomfortable, and I'm glad that this movie brought it up,
Hmm.
because I think it is a very sensitive subject for people, because I think just in general people just get uncomfortable with it, obviously,
Yeah.
and not too many movies really address it or even acknowledge it when it's happening. They kind of like, I feel like it's always just kind of this thing that's swept under the rug, where it's like if you
Hmm.
can't see it, you don't think about it. And I think that's just kind of an idea that's pervasive in our society. But animal cruelty and animal abuse and testing is still prevalent around the world.
Hmm.
So I'm glad that the movie spotlighted that. And it's not just about the cruelty part. There's a lot of subjects that are brought up in this movie, like I think I would argue the idea of animal nature and perfectionism, and then like genetic engineering, kind of like eugenics a little bit.
Yeah. Oh,
So
very
there's a
much
lot of
eugenics. Yeah.
there's a lot of crazy subjects brought up in this movie. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And it's like I just wanted to say, like, if you're a parent of a really young kid, like the PG-13 rating exists for a reason. You know your kid's better than like us random people on the internet. If you think your kid can handle that, then fine. But it like PG-13 means like might not be suitable for all audiences, and this might be tough for the little ones. It's not
Hmm.
it's not like a scary, upsetting movie or anything. It just has some
Yeah.
darker elements. It fits firmly within PG-13. But moving on from that, I really loved, and this is something all the Guardians movies have done, but the shifting diegesis of the needle drops of all the like rock songs from the Zune, because like they've always been existing within universe, but it's something I always love in movies where we're listening to something on the score and then it shifts to a speaker in the scene or vice versa. Just a note that I love seeing. I think it's so fun.
The music is always exceptional in these movies. Like they just know how to weave a good soundtrack through
Mm-hmm.
the movie and not have it be just like all the hits, all the like big numbers that everyone's gonna know, like in the Mario movie that we were just talking about, where it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're just playing the big ones like Aha and Beastie Boys and like all this kind of stuff like that. Like all the songs in this movie, I feel like are placed intentionally, and I feel like that's
Yes.
been consistent throughout the trilogy.
Yes, it is the second movie we've seen recently with Chris Pratt in a fight scene playing No Sleep Till Brooklyn, though, which is kind of funny.
That's so true. Oh my god, I didn't make that connection.
It's less on the nose than Mario Brothers, because Mario Brothers is like, oh, you're in Brooklyn, so what do we play? No Sleep Till Brooklyn. This is, but
Those Beastie Boys, they're making some good residuals.
yeah, but I think Guardians 3 being as great as it is, it shows us two things about the MCU. One, it really reminds you as a viewer why people do love the Marvel movies and are
Hmm.
starting to get a little disappointed in them, because like when they're good, they can be really good and really pop off. And two, it shows us why settling for the mediocrity we've been seeing a lot lately. Like I'm seeing a lot of use of the like let people enjoy things meme from Marvel
Hmm.
fans, and also just like people attacking critics for being critical of the movies. It's like, okay, if you do that, we're never getting another Guardians 3 ever. Because if Marvel, as a corporation who is a subsidiary of the Disney Corporation, sees that, oh, we can just make Thor Love and Thunder quality movies and our audience will just gobble it up, then that is what they will do. And that is all they will do.
Yeah.
So like remember that when you're evaluating these, like you have to be a little critical of the bad ones in order to get the good. Be respectful, but
Yeah, of course, but yeah, I think I'll also clarify too that we went into this movie with two different perspectives too. So
Yep.
you had watched the holiday special, I had not.
Mhm.
So I was a little kind of flying blind going in, but she kind of gave me like some pointers
Yeah.
about, okay, here's what you need to know. And I didn't feel terribly out of the loop at the start. But I know it would have helped my viewing experience. But like, I feel like they did a good job of establishing everything very
Mhm.
cleanly with like that kind of, with like, it was like, it felt like a one take where they're just going through nowhere and you
Oh
get to
yeah.
see all of our characters and like, oh, this is a new one. This is a new one. Oh, this is the things have changed, but
Right.
you get a sense of what's happening and all that stuff. So I didn't feel like my viewing experience was, but I missed too much because I
Yeah.
didn't watch it.
There's not a ton of important stuff in the special. Like there is one relationship that is revealed, but this movie tells you about it pretty quickly, and they have nowhere now. That's just where they live. But you don't see them get it in the holiday special either. They just already live there and are setting it up.
Yeah.
So that happened
right.
off screen. But yeah, I think this movie maintains the quality we've come to expect from the Guardians movies, and it really gives a really satisfying send off to this cast of characters who we've gotten to know over the last 9 years. The first one came out in 2014.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, I just think you really feel the love between all of the main characters on the team, and you can really feel that they've grown as people and have sort of come to view each other as a team and a family. They're not the same people they were when we first met them. And it's just a satisfying closer to a trilogy. And this is the only sub-series in the Marvel series that I consider to actually be a trilogy. All the rest of them are just too intertwined in Avengers movies and other stuff going on to function as standalone trilogies. In my opinion, this is the exception.
Yeah, I would agree because I'm just thinking back on like Captain America and Iron Man and those trilogies and Thor, I guess to an extent, but Thor just keeps going. And yeah, like they are all like pretty closely aligned with each other, I would say.
Yeah.
And they're all building to something. I feel like Guardians is just here, we're just the Guardians, we're having fun.
Right.
And saving the universe.
Like the end of Cap's trilogy is Civil War. It's like that's not a closing chapter for that character at all. That's a middle chapter. His story ends in Endgame. Like it's not a trilogy. It doesn't work as a trilogy. It's silly to call it one.
And I think, the movie itself, in a lot of these Marvel movies, you're going to see those same common tropes, the common beats, the repetitive ideas along the way. And those are all fine and good if you can craft a good, interesting story around them. And, you still see some of that stuff come up in Guardians 3 here. But, I don't think it harms the film at all. Like, I honestly don't have many complaints. Like, like the only complaints I can think of are like very minimal and like very nitpicky. Like I think you could remove this series almost from the MCU and it would still kind of work for the most part on its own. Kind of like maybe even like if the MCU didn't exist and you just made the Guardians films, it could just be kind of like a Star Wars movie where it's just like, okay, now it's just this whole new environment and we're just going to focus on these characters. That's it. Like,
and I think that was part of Gunn's goal in making this was not to make a Star Wars, but make something that feels like a Star Wars to a new generation. And I don't know if he fully succeeded at doing that, but he did make something really special with all three of these movies, I think. And it'll be a loss for Marvel seeing him go. Like that's the reason it's tempting to say this movie is a return to form for Marvel, but Gunn is leaving and Gunn has not made a bad superhero movie. So like whether Marvel's turning a corner kind of remains to be seen. I think we'll have a better answer to that when we watch the Marvels in November. So we'll talk about that then. But he's going to DC now. He's in charge. He's written and is directing Superman Legacy. And if you're not excited for that after this, like I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but I'll probably watch it because now I just love James Gunn. Like after watching
Yeah.
the Suicide Squad, which we also reviewed, so hope you guys check
And
out that episode
Peacemaker,
too.
another
And
episode on
Peacemaker,
that.
yeah, he did Peacemaker, and that was a terrific show too.
Mhm.
God, he does really well with the music throughout all of those movies
Yeah.
too. Like, I'm just kind of like remembering all of the tropes and stuff that are common throughout his movies.
Mhm.
He's kind of got those one hallway sequences, and he's got the good tunes weaved throughout the shows. Like this guy knows what he's doing.
He just gets the genre a lot, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to move into spoilers?
I think that we should.